Born of the lineage that took Grand Theft Auto's open city mayhem to rising popularity, Crackdown is a series that has become a cult hit among Xbox gamers to a black eye on the Xbox One platform, with several redirections and 2 delays. But hell or high water, Microsoft is determined to release Crackdown 3 in front of a massive spring blast zone of games. Crackdown has come a long ways in the past 10 years, but has this evolution of the third game earned your attention? This is Colt Eastwood. I'm a huge fan of Crackdown, and I didn't get to play the first game until it was enhanced on the X in 2018. I started with Crackdown 2 when it first launched on the Xbox 360. Right now, we're going to look at the tumultuous development that this series has taken. So if you like this kind of content, like and subscribe to the channel. I only put out content once a week, so I won't spam your feed with multiple notifications. So hit the bell to know when I finally have a video up. I'm excited to talk about Crackdown, and I learned a ton while I gathered the information we'll talk about here, and I think you will too. So agents, let's get to it. Crackdown. The creation of Dave Jones took an ambitious cue and former designers from the highly successful Grand Theft Auto trilogy to create an all-new sandbox in a 3D open world. Started as an original Xbox exclusive as early as 2002 to be released at the end of the generation in 2005. Development was targeted for 2007 on the Xbox 360, but the massive city and explosive gameplay was presented in a cel-shaded art style. Toward the end of the Xbox Originals generation, Microsoft presented Dave Jones' team with Xbox 360 hardware and recommended that they move to an all-new engine. This started a long, reoccurring curse of redirection and rework for the Crackdown series that endured over 10 years. The Xbox 360 was a much more powerful, capable, and efficient kit of hardware, and moving to the engine was a mistake for the team, and even as the game was ready to debut in 2006 on the Xbox 360, the team at Real Time World said that Crackdown still wasn't ready. Seeing a pattern here? Microsoft had a brand new console in the Xbox 360, and they wanted killer apps as they waited for Bungie to finish Halo 3. So Microsoft sent programmers over to the Crackdown team to get cracking on code and optimization. Originally slated for 2005 on the original Xbox, it was now penned for the first year or two on the Xbox 360 in 2006. An original idea that started in 2002 as a supercop sandbox game, but by 2006, the interest for Crackdown was fading as players gravitated to new concepts like Gears of War and the hit new first-person shooters. Microsoft decided to salvage Crackdown by packaging the game with a multiplayer trial for 2007's Halo 3. The Crackdown team was happy with the deal and said, quote, "We kind of knew Crackdown would need as much help as it could get. It's a player's game, it's not something that's going to sell in a screenshot, so the Halo 3 beta deal was good." Crackdown hit store shelves 11 years ago in February 2007 and sold over 1 million copies immediately with that Halo 3 trial sticker on the front of the game case. Crackdown's first priority over visuals and innovation was fun, and wanted to give the player freedom, power, and the flexibility to roam the city in their own way and feel powerful as they ran law enforcement in the gang-ridden Pacific City. Millions queued into the Halo 3 lobbies, and many of them tried that Crackdown game they bought for the Halo Access. What happened was the allure of roundhouse kicking, machine gunning carloads of murdering gangbangers and mafia thugs proved to be just as addictive as becoming a superhero leaping buildings in search of agility orbs. Everything you did in Crackdown awarded you with vacuumed orbs that leveled your character and rewarded gameplay. Crackdown was a simple-looking game with very little visual splendor. Many repeating textures and a low polygon count showed its DNA routed in last generation's tech. But Crackdown got an 83 Metacritic review score with 95% of reviews positive. Critics were won over, and even though they all came to see Halo early, they stayed to see justice served in Crackdown, a cult hit. The original creators of Crackdown were busy with the critical failure open-world MMO-style GTA clone APB, and Microsoft tasked Ruffian Games, made up of much of the team that built the original Crackdown, to work on a sequel. In 2010, with little fanfare among the generation's biggest games, Crackdown 2 arrived somewhat unceremoniously in the spring. The game deviated very little from the original, and this was the root of heavy criticism for the sequel. Crackdown 2 added key gameplay features that made the game superior to the original, like roaming hordes of nocturnal zombies and huge infected locations to clear out, along with gang leader hideouts. The biggest cause for Crackdown 2 to be pegged as a mediocre sequel was the repurpose of Pacific City, only this time distressed from years of gang destruction. Crackdown 2 looked very much like its predecessor, and in 2010, when games like Grand Theft Auto 4 and Red Dead Redemption wowed console gamers, Crackdown 2 was known affectionately as Crackdown 1.5. But that addictive gameplay loop was still there, and Crackdown remained a cult hit, and the sequel sold very little. The Xbox One was off to its roughest start in 2013, and soon after, Microsoft didn't do the platform any favors by presenting a colorful Crackdown 3 pre-rendered cinematic trailer. By 2014, 7 years after the first Crackdown and a failed sequel, audiences found a tiny bit of nostalgia and brand loyalty for Crackdown in between the couch cushions. The prospect of a colorful next-generation Crackdown on more powerful hardware, retooled for the current console, was interesting to say the least. What followed was yet another rocky development of empty, misguided promises. Crackdown 3 wasn't shown until Gamescom in 2015, with Dave Jones returning to Microsoft Studios, with ambitions to take Crackdown 3 into the cloud-powered future. Showcasing extended footage of a Crackdown agent blasting concrete and steel into tiny destructible pieces, with off-site physics handled by servers. The plan was to let Xbox One players loose in a fully destructible, massive city. It was groundbreaking, and many doubted if the tech demo would ever see the light of day. The game was promised for an open beta in 2016, which never materialized. Crackdown was never a beacon of the Xbox One, with bigger games like Gears of War 4 and Forza Horizon already offering AAA experiences on the console. As time wore on, Crackdown went from a roaring explosion to a quiet hush, and the beta window passed as rumors swirled that Crackdown was in real trouble. Microsoft was busy getting the Xbox One X off the ground for the end of 2017. Things really started to happen for Crackdown 3 in that year. Sumo Digital, a UK-based third-party development team, was building the campaign while Dave Jones' team, CloudGen, tried to get the Azure cloud-powered multiplayer a reality. At E3 2017, Xbox fans and eyes on Crackdown 3 expected a full gameplay reveal and multiplayer destruction, a real-time demo, as Microsoft promised Crackdown 3 to launch on the Xbox One X as a flagship title at 4K. Terry Crews was now attached to Crackdown as a playable character, and his charisma and bombastic personality became the new branding for Crackdown 3. The trailer was all fans got of Crackdown, consisting of jump cuts, close-ups, agents running and gunning the city. The Rad Brad, a prominent YouTuber, was given 10 minutes of continuous high-level Agent Crackdown 3 gameplay, and this footage was very well received with 90% likes. The game was painted in cel shading, but decidedly dull-looking, missing the richness and the spark of the original trailer in 2014. But it was Comic-Con that summer that destroyed the chances of Crackdown 3 releasing that November. Microsoft gave a liberal hands-on control of Crackdown to anyone with a pulse, and a game that needed a true coat of polish looked even worse while played by people that had no idea how to use a video game controller. An outcry from the gaming community prompted Microsoft to do some quality control on the development of Crackdown 3 just months from final release. The single-player campaign looked like a bust. It paled in comparison to other open-world games, and it appeared that Microsoft didn't want to show that destructible multiplayer it promised. Or maybe they had secretly canceled it altogether. By August, just a month after the Comic-Con disaster for Crackdown, the game was announced to be pushed to spring 2018. The Xbox One X debuted in 2017 with no new shiny Xbox exclusive, and the vague release window of spring 2018 meant the game could release any day up until E3 2018, a year since we last saw gameplay footage. The spring 2018 window came and went. Something was seriously wrong with the Crackdown 3 development, and Microsoft was not talking about it. Rumors of yet another delay turn into the word canceled. E3 2018 arrived in June and Crackdown materialized again, the same way it did in 2017, with Terry Crews setting the mood and the trailer was filled with polished gameplay. Crackdown looked to add more guns, vehicle transformation, and a sharper, more richly colored, explosive world, more in line with the original vision showed 4 years earlier. 4 or 5 year development is not uncommon, but that destructible multiplayer was still MIA. Microsoft was still not talking about it. Soon after E3, Xbox's Phil Spencer took to an interview with Giant Bomb and said that the game needed more time. This was the first time Microsoft was transparent about their troubled game. Phil Spencer admitted to being a big fan of the Crackdown series, and he said in its current state, the agent didn't move or feel powerful enough, and he asked Sumo Digital to pour over the top and bottom of Crackdown and overhaul the campaign. Was the cloud-powered destruction still in Crackdown 3? Yeah, is all Phil answered, because at the time of the interview in mid-2018, CloudGen had already been acquired by Epic Games, the team behind the massive Fortnite, taking Dave Jones, who had been reduced to a consultant on development. Microsoft scrambled to build a new Azure Cloud team for Crackdown and deliver that multiplayer even though it meant starting from scratch.
Crackdown 3!
Microsoft's Joseph Staten, a former director at Bungie, rejoined Microsoft Studios to take on the mantle of the troubled Crackdown 3. Toward the end of the year for Microsoft's XO18, Joseph Staten debuted Crackdown 3's multiplayer with tangible excitement. The destructible multiplayer mode called Wrecking Zone was presented in full form, and the destruction was definitely front and center in the action. Thanks to the Azure Cloud Computing, giving the physics-based destruction the processing power of 12 Xbox One X's or 30 base Xbox Ones. Wrecking Zone pits 5 versus 5, agents rocket boosting and rockets firing, and the play area was reduced to several city blocks instead of the whole city. There are 2 modes for competitive multiplayer: Wrecking Zone, a straight 5v5 team deathmatch, and the second is Agent Hunter, Crackdown's take on Kill Confirmed, with shiny golden dog tags littered throughout the toppled map to rack up points for the fastest agent. The shooting mechanics are based on lock-on, over-the-shoulder combat with more of an emphasis on traversal, breaking line of sight, and using the destructible environment to your advantage or to your enemy's disadvantage. Matches are quick and explosive with creativity and power at the core of gameplay. There is literally nothing like Wrecking Zone. Reports celebrate the veracity of fun, exhilaration, and promises delivered with Crackdown's destructible gameplay, running stable regardless of your internet connection or choice of hardware to play on. Still, little has been shown of the campaign since Sumo Digital has given the single-player campaign a long, detailed once-over. The game has been pared down from 4-player campaign to just 2, just as the first game had, but there are 20 agents to choose from. Each one levels a different set of skills faster than the rest. And if you want, you can play the entire campaign as Agent Jackson, voiced and modeled after Terry Crews. This time, all agents don a jetpack booster for double jumps and forward thrusts. Before, your agent in Crackdown 1 and 2 was limited to stiff animations, skating footwork, and awkward handholds to scale buildings. The newly reworked Crackdown 3 gives you fluid control of a more agile and dynamically animated agent that will feel more connected to the world. There are 3 different factions to be concerned with bringing to justice, and one being an overly protective team of robots, turned rampant on the city of New Providence under the control of the corporate terrorist group Terra Nova. Instead of enemies spawning in fixed locations, the factions will track you down the more you clean up the city until you've flushed out their ringleader, and it's a big city to clean. Twice the size of Pacific City, with an industrial bland color palette of 2010 replaced with Game Radar's description of a Tron-inspired city pushed into Grand Theft Auto, with neon-adorned buildings and signs. But the most memorable star of the Crackdown world is the orbs. The green orbs dotted across the city beg to be collected in tiers of "I can reach those right now" all the way to "I'll get to those when I can jump 30 stories. Everything you do in Crackdown rewards you with experience. Want to have the strength to lift a car and throw it at your enemies? Punch and kick your way through the bad guys. Want your guns to do more damage? Keep shooting down gangs, and little orbs will follow you and add to your bank of skills for kills. Overall, the game looks really good. The animations have been greatly improved, the world has been bolstered up with content and variety. The multiplayer is very much real and has impressed testers and journalists, but most of all, Crackdown 3 is offering a pure, hard-hitting, vividly colored fun with addictive progression. Crackdown has come a long way from the first cross-generation Crackdown game, making it all the way back to 2002. Crackdown 2 was more of the same with zombies and technically ended up looking worse. It isn't a surprise with all of the hangups and the setbacks. Crackdown has always had obstacles to overcome just to see the light of day. Looking at Crackdown 3 with the first 2 years wasted on cloud gen fiddling and cloud destruction, Microsoft wasted 2 more years not keeping an eye on the campaign development, but thankfully, as attitudes changed within Xbox, Phil Spencer was able to get both teams on Crackdown back on track, and on February 15th, it's going to pay off as Microsoft delivers one of the most unique, wild, and fun-fueled open-world sandboxes, and after a very long wait, finally gives us the keys to the city. This is Colt Eastwood. Thank you so much for watching. I feel like I've been one of the very few following and reporting on Crackdown, and admittedly for the first 3 years since the announcement, I wasn't really interested in Crackdown 3. Things changed when Rad Brad showed it off, and I'm excited, and I hope to be able to get an early review out for all of you. If you like this video or you learned something, hit that like and subscribe to the channel. Add me on Xbox Live or Twitter at Colt Eastwood. Let me know if you're joining me in New Providence. Not many are excited about Crackdown, and if you aren't, at least try to be nice.